Which brings us to idea number 2, general test taking strategies. While the GRE follows a very specific format for all of its questions and it is computer adaptive, since it is a standardized test, there are some general strategies that work on any test that help you on the GRE. These are strategies that you might have used on the SAT or ACT, and they work on other graduate tests as well. But you definitely need to be reminded what they are, because I can guarantee you are not using them in your college courses. The tests that you're used to taking in college and even well before are totally different than the GRE or any other standardized test. Your college exams follow a certain pattern. They cover a limited subject matter, at most 1 year of one course in the case of a final, but usually college tests cover just a few chapters or even one chapter. Even more importantly, a college exam evaluates your content knowledge, how much you know about a subject. That's why you are usually given plenty of time to finish an exam, and why your professors want to give you partial credit or even extra credit. They can also do that because a college exam is graded by human beings. Finally, the college exam are just one element of an overall grade in the course. But by contrast, the GRE covers a wide range of material and jumps around between different topics in the quant and verbal sections. And to succeed, it doesn't matter what you know, but if you can memorize details and deploy strategies. You also must do all of that in a rigorously timed setting, and you need to make sure that you get the right answer and avoid wrong answers, because the test is machine graded. If all of that isn't stressful enough, your score is the only thing that matters. And this is why GRE is so difficult for so many students. You've learned one way to take tests your whole life, and now you're being judged on something completely different. The biggest difference between your college exams and the GRE comes down to timing and pacing. To put it simply, the GRE is a standardized test, which means it is designed to make you run out of time, which is, for the cynics out there, fantastic. You'll have moments where you glance at the clock and feel like you need to rush, and that's part and parcel of the test. You need to focus on the right timing and pacing for you to get the best score that you can. So let's look at how this works on the individual sections. The quantitative sections give you 35 minutes to answer 20 questions. So that works out to about 1 minute 45 seconds for each question. You could be thinking, I'm fast at math, I can go really quickly and I won't run out of time. But remember what these tests actually test you on. There is no simple, quick math on any question. The word problems require you to break down each element in the question before you do any math. The quantitative comparison questions require a specific and involved way of thinking about math. And on those select all that apply questions, you need to do the math for every single answer choice to check if it's correct. And all of that takes time. Now think about the verbal sections. You have less time, just 30 minutes for 20 questions, which is 1 minute and 30 seconds per question. In those 90 seconds, you will do a lot of reading, and reading takes time too. For any reading passages, your time per question includes reading and analyzing those passages too. So even in text completion and sentence equivalence questions, you will need to look at all of the answer choices and evaluate them in the sentence. And none of those sentences are simple subject, verb, object sentences. You'll be wading through dependent clauses and complex syntax. So basically, here's the key point. There are no questions, absolutely no questions on the GRE that can be answered quickly or easily. That means you might have to make some tough choices. You might need to skip a question you've been staring at for a minute and getting nowhere. You might know that it'll take you longer to perform certain kinds of math. A specific subject on a reading passage will just be more of a slog than another. And you will need to assess how to find the optimal way to go through the test for yourself. So we need to talk about food. It stands for personal order of difficulty, but it's obviously much more fun to say food. So here's how it works. You will have certain types of questions that you are more successful on than others. That's true for everyone, although each student has a different set of questions that they're better with. Spot those and list the question types from easiest for you to hardest for you, and that's your food. You will do better on the test if you begin by tackling the questions you will succeed on. That allows you to make sure that you answer all the questions you are likely to get right, which means you are banking points while you are fresher. And there's also an added bonus to food. By doing the questions you are better at first, you will be more comfortable, which will build your confidence. There is another key strategy that you are probably already using. You have been taking multiple choice tests for so long that you aren't even aware of the strategy you might already be using, but it is so important for the GRE. It gives you specific advantages on each question. And because you don't always need to find the right answer, process of elimination might be the way to go. It is the way to go, in fact. There's one more key strategy, which is really knowing something about the entire test. The test writers are trying to trick you. Now I'm going to read a math problem out loud and then take it away. So if the store raises the price of an item by 20% and then decreases the new price by 15%, what was the percent change in the price of the item, guys? Did anyone think 5%? Okay. So not necessarily that you think it's the right answer, but you thought it, right? The trap answer is a 5% change. The real answer is 2%. Here's a Princeton review strategy for you. If you see any item raised or lowered by a percentage, that item now costs $100. So if the item is $100 and it's raised 20%, that's $20. And so the new price is $120. Then $120 is decreased by 15%, which is $18. 120 minus 18 is 102, which is overall a 2% increase. And most likely the answer choices would be something like A2, B5, C15, D35. So they will try and trick you, and you are likely to fall for it at some point. And that's why most of the common mistakes that cause students to answer questions incorrectly are really, really simple. You won't get questions wrong because you don't know the quadratic formula or a difficult vocabulary word, but you will do a few small things to mess yourself up. Number one, you will answer questions too quickly, like in the previous math question. Number two, you will put down careless answers, like not noticing the difference between a positive or a negative number, even though you know the importance of getting that right. You will make mistakes by doing work in your head. There are all sorts of distractions, from another test taker coughing to the shuffling of papers to a siren outside. All of those can distract you if you do your work in your head. You'll also misread some problems, seeing increase instead of decrease, or looking for the characterization the author would give rather than the one they would not give. And to keep it simple, you also can just not understand what to do. And I don't mean that you forgot a math formula. I mean, you don't know the specific task the question requires you to do. These are the reasons it is so difficult to get every question correct. In fact, it's difficult to get a high score. And that's why you need the right strategies for each GRE question type, which is what we are here at now. The strategies needed to succeed on the specific GRE questions are so important. As we talked about, the GRE asks questions in a very specific manner and also a very unique manner. If you go into test day aware of these approaches, you can be more successful. Now, can I go over every possible GRE strategy? Of course not. I don't have too much time left. And our courses have much more instruction time than the time that I have left. Our fundamentals course has 24 hours of instruction on the whole exam, while our 162 plus course has 45 hours of instruction. You won't get to everything, but even in the 15 minutes that I do have, I can give you some basic strategies for a certain GRE questions that will give you a leg up. So let's start with the essays. The analytical writing assessment is extremely simple, and that is where you might actually run into some problems. Your task with the AWA is to analyze the argument presented in a passage or take a stance on an issue. You don't need to bring in a bunch of other knowledge or beautiful prose. Either way, you need to follow a simple and straightforward plan. So take a 4-step approach. Those 4 steps are brainstorm, outline, write, and edit. Now you only have 30 minutes to do all 4 things. So keep in mind how short a time you have to do every step. You need to keep to the schedule as much as you can, but you are also going to be writing a very simple essay. So keep to the most basic outline of a 5-paragraph essay, and you will keep focused on the task. Are there more interesting essay structures that could provide more depth? Yes, but that's not what you are being asked to do. Remember those quantitative comparison questions? It won't be about finding a correct answer choice with a specific answer, but determining whether quantity A is greater or quantity B is greater, or if they're equal, or if you can actually tell any of this with what they've given you. So look at this question. You can solve it with the Pythagorean theorem, but you don't need to do all of the calculations. It's not called quantitative comparison. It's not called quantitative calculation. It's called quantitative comparison. So you can take 2 pens or 2 chopsticks, which I guess you probably won't have on the exam, but you could try and take 2 pens or even just your hands and create the 2 sides of the triangle that are equal in the question. If you keep touching them at the top, if you keep them touching at the top and spread out the bottom, you can see that as the side gets longer, the distance from the top point to the base gets smaller. And that means quantity A is greater. Sentence equivalence questions are trickily complex. You need to find the right word to fill in the blank. Simple, right? Not so fast. First, you need to find all of the answers that can apply, not just one answer. And also the sentences may be overly complex. There's a lot going on, but you can break it down systematically. Just ask some simple questions. Who or what is the subject of the sentence? In this case, it's James's words. What do we know about them? They're usually typically quite lucid. There's a transition word, although. So what simple word would be the opposite of lucid? Unclear. So go through each answer choice and see what works. So I would say that abstruse and obscure are the closest in the meaning of unclear. And if you don't know what lucid means, it's the benefit of an overly complex sentence is that you can see the students asked him to review the discussion. That means he probably wasn't being very clear, and you can use process of elimination to cut out answers. So let's go back to where we started, which is graduate school doesn't really have a specific meaning. It can cover so many different subjects and lengths of programs, and all it really means is that you are doing some studying beyond a bachelor's. Still, one thing might unite all graduate programs. Whatever graduate program you're pointing towards, if it's in the arts, the sciences, the humanities, or the social sciences, the one thing that will define your application process is the GRE. And if it's taken by students applying to all of those different programs, you know that it's not about what you learn in college or what you will learn in graduate school. It's a standardized test that anyone can beat. That's all for me.